I walked into my childhood home and found my father on the floor, his wheelchair overturned beside him. His face was swollen, blood dried on his lip. He looked up at me with tears in his eyes and whispered one word that made my blood freeze. Tristan. That's when I knew my life was about to change forever. Hit like, subscribe for more betrayal stories, and comment your city or country. 3 weeks earlier, I'd been halfway around the world on a classified mission with my Special Forces unit. Now I was standing in the doorway of the house where I grew up, staring at my father lying helpless on the hardwood floor. My name is Dominic, and I'd seen a lot of terrible things in my military career, but nothing prepared me for seeing my own father like this. My dad, Victor, had been paralyzed from the waist down for 5 years after a car accident. Mom died 2 years after that, and Dad insisted on living alone in the house. He was stubborn, independent, refused any talk of assisted living. I visited when I could between deployments, made sure he had everything he needed. He always said he was fine. I rushed over and helped him up, lifting him back into his wheelchair. His hands were shaking. "Dad, what happened? Who did this to you?" He wouldn't look at me, just kept his eyes on the floor, breathing heavy. I noticed more bruises on his arms, like someone had grabbed him hard. The coffee table was knocked over. A lamp was shattered in the corner. "Dad, talk to me." I knelt down so I could see his face. He finally looked at me, and I saw something I'd never seen in my father before. Fear. Real, deep fear. There's these men. They've been coming around for about 3 weeks. What men? Bikers. A gang. The leader, his name is Tristan. Dad's voice cracked. They said they want to help me. Said they could take care of everything if I just signed some papers. I felt anger rising in my chest. What kind of papers? My life insurance policy. They want me to sign it over to them. They said they'd make sure I'm taken care of, that I wouldn't have to worry about medical bills or anything. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. I told them no. I told them to leave me alone. I looked around the room again. This wasn't just a robbery. This was a message. "So they did this to you?" He nodded slowly. "Tristan came back yesterday with 2 other guys. They were nice at first, just talking. Then Tristan got angry. He said I was being stupid, that I should be grateful they were even offering to help an old cripple." Dad's voice got quieter. "That's when they started pushing me around. One of them tipped my wheelchair over. Tristan kicked me while I was on the ground. Said this was just a warning." My hands clenched into fists. I'd been trained to stay calm in combat situations, to think clearly under pressure. But this was different. This was my father. "Dad, why didn't you call the police?" I did. They took a report, but said there wasn't much they could do without proof. And Tristan, he said if I called the cops again, it would be worse next time. He grabbed my arm. "Dominic, please. I don't want you getting involved. These guys are dangerous. They're not just some punk kids. They're organized." I looked at my father, this man who raised me to stand up for what's right, who taught me to protect people who couldn't protect themselves. Now he was telling me to walk away. "I'm not going anywhere, Dad. I'm staying here until we figure this out." "No, you have to go back to your unit. You can't risk your career over this." "My career doesn't matter if you're not safe." I stood up and walked to the kitchen, got him some water and ice for his face. "Tell me everything about these guys. What do they look like? How many of them are there?" Dad drank the water slowly, his hands still trembling. "Tristan's the leader. Tall guy, maybe 6'2", covered in tattoos. Always wears a leather vest with their gang patch on the back. There's usually 2 or 3 other guys with him. They ride motorcycles, loud ones. Park them right on my lawn like they own the place." "What about the insurance thing? How do they even know about your policy?" "That's what scares me." Dad set the water down. "They knew details they shouldn't know. They knew how much the policy is worth. They knew about the accident. They even knew about your mother passing." He looked up at me. How would they know all that unless someone told them? That made me stop. He was right. This wasn't random. Someone had given them information about my father. I checked the rest of the house while Dad sat in the living room. They hadn't stolen anything. This really was just about intimidation. In the bathroom, I found bloody towels in the trash. Dad had tried to clean himself up before I got there. When I came back to the living room, I noticed something on the floor near the door. A business card. I picked it up. It was plain white with just a phone number on it. No name. I flipped it over. My stomach dropped. On the back of the card, written in pen, was the name of my military unit. My specific special forces group. Information that wasn't public, that most people wouldn't have access to. Dad, did they leave this? He looked at the card, and his face went pale. Tristan dropped it on my chest before they left. He said, "Give this to your soldier boy when he comes home. Tell him we know all about him too." The message was clear. They knew about me. They'd done their research. This wasn't just about scaring an old man anymore. They were showing me they could reach anyone in my family. I put the card in my pocket and pulled out my phone. I'm calling the police again. And this time I'm making sure they take this seriously. Dominic, please. No, Dad. This ends now. I didn't spend 10 years learning how to track and stop bad guys just to let some bikers terrorize my own father. But even as I said it, I knew this was going to be more complicated than I thought. These weren't just random criminals. They were organized. They had information they shouldn't have, and they were smart enough to know exactly how to threaten me. I looked down at that business card again, at my unit's name written on the back. Whoever these guys were, they'd just made their first mistake. They thought knowing about my military background would scare me off. What they didn't understand was that it gave me every tool I needed to take them down. I just had to be smart about it. Patient. Do this the right way. I helped Dad into his bedroom and made sure he was comfortable. He was exhausted, physically and emotionally drained. As I turned off the light, he said quietly, "I'm sorry you have to deal with this." "Don't be sorry, Dad. Just rest. I'll handle it." I closed his door and went back to the living room. I picked up his overturned wheelchair, cleaned up the broken lamp, set the furniture right. While I worked, my mind was already planning. First step was getting more information. Who was this Tristan? How big was his gang? What was their real operation? I sat on the couch and stared at that business card for a long time. They knew about me, but they didn't know what I was really capable of. And that was going to be their biggest mistake. The next morning, I left Dad with a neighbor, Mrs. Clara, who agreed to check on him every hour. I told her to call me immediately if anyone came by. Then I drove across town to the address I'd found online for a clubhouse that matched the gang's description. I parked 3 blocks away and walked the rest of the distance. The building was an old auto repair shop that had been converted into their headquarters. Motorcycles lined the front, at least a dozen of them. Black leather, chrome, loud pipes. A sign above the door read, "Iron Wolves, MC." I didn't get close. Instead, I found a coffee shop across the street with a window view and settled in with a laptop and a camera with a long lens. This was basic reconnaissance, the kind of work I'd done 100 times in the field. Watch, document, identify patterns. For the next 6 hours, I took photos of everyone who came and went. Counted 8 core members who seemed to spend most of their time there. Tristan was easy to spot when he arrived around noon, tall and covered in tattoos just like Dad described. He walked like he owned the street. I photographed the other men with him. One was built like a tank, bald head, thick beard. Another was younger, maybe mid-20s, with long hair tied back. I labeled them in my notes, gave them temporary names until I could figure out their real ones. Tank, ponytail, scar, red beard. Around 2 in the afternoon, I watched them load up into trucks instead of bikes. 4 of them, including Tristan. I paid for my coffee and followed at a safe distance. They drove to a nice neighborhood on the east side of town and pulled up to a small house with a ramp leading to the front door. My chest tightened. Another disabled person. Another target. I parked down the street and watched through binoculars. Tristan knocked on the door. An elderly woman answered, maybe 70 years old, using a walker. Tristan smiled at her, friendly and warm. He talked for a few minutes while the other guys waited by the trucks. The woman nodded a lot, seemed trusting. Then Tristan handed her some papers and a pen. She signed something right there on her doorstep. They left after that, all smiles and waves. The woman watched them go, looking relieved, like they'd just solved all her problems. She had no idea what she'd just done. I drove back to the clubhouse and resumed my surveillance. This wasn't just about my father. This was a full operation. They were running an organized scheme, targeting vulnerable people, probably all over the city. By evening, I had enough photos to identify most of the core members. I ran their faces through some databases I still had access to from my military contacts. 3 of them had criminal records: assault, drug possession, theft. Tristan's real name was Tristan Wade. 2 prior convictions for fraud and extortion, served 4 years total. I made notes of everything: their daily routines, who came and went, what vehicles they drove, even the delivery trucks that brought them food and supplies. Information was power, and I was building a complete picture of their operation. Around 7, I decided it was time to involve the police officially. I drove to the station and asked to speak with someone from the fraud division. They sent me to a detective named Harper, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. I laid out everything I'd discovered, showed her the photos, explained what happened to my father, told her about the elderly woman I'd seen signing papers. Harper listened carefully, taking notes. "Mr. Dominic, I appreciate you bringing this to us. The truth is, we've been watching the Iron Wolves for about 6 months now." "You have? Then why haven't you done anything?" "Because we need solid evidence that will hold up in court. We know they're running an insurance scam, but proving it is complicated. Most of their victims don't even realize they've been scammed until it's too late. And the ones who do realize it are too scared to testify." I leaned forward. "My father will testify. I'll make sure of it." "That's good, but we need more than one victim's testimony. We need documents, financial records, proof of conspiracy." She looked at my photos. "These are helpful, but surveillance photos alone won't get us a conviction. What we really need is evidence of their financial operation. Bank accounts, forged documents, communications between gang members. How long will that take? Could be months. These investigations move slowly. We have to do it right or they walk free." "Months." My father didn't have months. Neither did the other people they were targeting. "Detective Harper, with all due respect, I can't wait months while they terrorize my father. I understand your frustration, but you need to let us handle this legally. If you go after them yourself, you could compromise our entire investigation. Worse, you could get hurt or end up in legal trouble yourself." I left the police station feeling frustrated but not defeated. Harper was right about the legal process, but that didn't mean I had to sit around doing nothing. I drove to the insurance company listed on the papers Tristan had shown my father. It was a small local agency called Secure Life Insurance. I walked in just before closing time. The woman at the front desk looked up with a tired smile. Her nameplate read Natalie Chun. "Can I help you?" "I hope so. My father has a policy with your company, and I'm trying to understand some recent communications he received." "Of course. What's your father's name?" "Victor Reeves." I watched her face carefully as she typed his name into her computer. Just for a second, barely noticeable, her expression changed. A flash of recognition, maybe worry. "Yes, here it is. What questions did you have?" He mentioned someone came by recently talking about his policy. Some kind of representatives offering to help manage it. Natalie's fingers paused on the keyboard. "I'm not sure what you mean. We don't typically send representatives to people's homes. These weren't from your company. They were independent. But they seemed to know a lot of details about his policy. Specific numbers, terms, conditions. That's concerning. Policy details are supposed to be confidential." But her voice didn't sound concerned. It sounded careful. "Right. So I'm wondering how these people would have access to that information." She looked at her screen instead of at me. "Sometimes information gets leaked through various channels. Data breaches, things like that. I can look into it if you'd like to file a formal complaint." "That would be great. How would someone file that complaint?" "I can give you the forms. Just fill them out and mail them to our corporate office." Translation: make it complicated enough that most people give up. I thanked her and took the forms. As I turned to leave, I said casually, "By the way, the man who came to see my father, his name was Tristan. You ever heard of him?" Her jaw tightened just slightly. "No, I don't think so." She was lying. I could see it in the way she suddenly became very interested in organizing papers on her desk. I walked out to my car, but didn't leave. Instead, I parked where I could see the exit of the building and waited. Natalie left 20 minutes later, right at closing time. She got into a silver sedan and drove east. I followed her, keeping several cars between us. She didn't go home. She drove to a diner on the edge of town, the kind of place that looked like it hadn't been updated since the 70s. She parked and went inside. Through the window, I could see her sliding into a booth. And sitting across from her, already waiting, was Tristan. I felt my blood turn cold. The insurance agent was working with the gang. This wasn't just criminals taking advantage of loose information. This was an inside job. Natalie was feeding them information about vulnerable clients, and they were using it to target people like my father. I took photos of them together through the diner window, watched them talk for 15 minutes. Tristan slid an envelope across the table. Natalie opened it, looked inside, then put it in her purse. Payment for her services. They were partners. This changed everything. It meant the operation was more sophisticated than I thought. It meant they had legitimate access to people's private information. And it meant taking them down was going to require more than just catching them in the act of intimidation. I needed to expose the entire network. Tristan left first, and Natalie followed a few minutes later. I sat in my car in that diner parking lot, thinking through my next steps. I had evidence now that connected the insurance agent to the gang leader. But Harper was right. I couldn't just burst in with accusations. I needed more. Needed to build a case so solid they couldn't escape it. I drove home to check on Dad. He was in bed, still looking shaken, but physically okay. I didn't tell him what I'd discovered yet. Didn't want to worry him more until I had a real plan. But as I sat in the living room that night, reviewing all my photos and notes, I knew one thing for certain. This wasn't going to be solved by just waiting for the police. I was going to have to get deeper into their operation, get closer to the danger. And that meant Tristan and I were going to meet face to face very soon. I spent the next 2 days installing security cameras around Dad's house. Small ones, hidden in the porch light, above the garage, near the back door. All connected to an app on my phone so I could watch live from anywhere. Dad didn't like it. "You're treating this like a war zone." It is a war zone, and I'm making sure we're prepared. On the third day, I had to drive into the city to meet with a lawyer about getting a restraining order against Tristan and his gang. It was a 2-hour round trip. I made sure Mrs. Clara was next door and told Dad to keep his phone close. I was 20 minutes into the drive when my phone buzzed with a motion alert from the front door camera. I pulled over and opened the app. 3 motorcycles were parked on Dad's lawn. 4 men walking toward the door. Tristan in front, followed by 3 others I recognized from my surveillance. My heart started pounding. I pulled up the camera inside the house that I'd hidden on the bookshelf. Dad was in his wheelchair in the living room, watching television. He hadn't heard them yet. The doorbell rang. Dad rolled over to answer it. I wanted to scream at him not to open it, but I was watching through a phone screen, helpless. Dad opened the door. Tristan smiled. "Hey, Victor. We need to talk. I told you to leave me alone. My son's here now, and he's handling things." "Yeah, we know all about your military son, but he's not here right now, is he?" Tristan pushed the door open wider and walked in without invitation. The other 3 followed. Dad backed his wheelchair up. "Get out of my house. We will, soon as you sign those papers. This is getting old, Victor. You're being stubborn, and it's starting to annoy me." I was already turning my car around, heading back. But I was 40 minutes away. I couldn't get there in time. On the screen, I watched Tristan pull out a pack of cigarettes. He lit one and took a long drag. "You know what I think your problem is? You don't understand consequences." One of the other men, the one I'd called Tank, grabbed Dad's wheelchair and pulled him into the center of the room. "Stop it. What are you doing?" Tristan leaned down close to Dad's face. Teaching you a lesson about respect. He pressed the lit cigarette against Dad's arm. Dad screamed. I could hear it through my phone's speaker, thin and distant but unmistakable. My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. Please stop. Sign the papers, old man. No. Tristan burned him again, this time on the other arm. Dad was crying now, trying to pull away, but Tank held the wheelchair steady. The third man, Ponytail, was filming it on his phone, laughing. Your son thinks he's tough because he's military, Tristan said. But he can't protect you. Nobody can. Sign the papers, or this gets much worse. He grabbed Dad's wheelchair and tipped it forward, dumping him onto the floor. Dad hit hard, his head bouncing off the carpet. He lay there curled up, helpless. Tank kicked him in the ribs. Not hard enough to break bones, but enough to hurt. Enough to terrify. Next time we come back, we're bringing gasoline, Tristan said. And we're gonna burn this whole house down with you in it. Unless you sign. Dad was sobbing on the floor. Please, please just go. You got 48 hours to change your mind. After that, we stopped being nice. They walked out, leaving Dad on the floor. I heard their motorcycles start up and roar away. I was driving 90 miles an hour now, passing cars, running red lights. I called Mrs. Clara, but she didn't answer. Called 911 and told them my father had been assaulted, gave them the address. It took me 35 minutes to get home. An ambulance was already there when I arrived. Paramedics were loading Dad onto a stretcher. His face was pale, his arms had red burn marks, his breathing was shallow. Dad, I ran to him. He looked at me with empty eyes. They said they'd kill me, Dominic. They meant it. I know. I saw everything. The cameras recorded it all. The paramedic interrupted. Sir, we need to get him to the hospital. He's got burns, possible broken ribs, and he's in shock. I rode in the ambulance with him. Dad kept saying the same thing over and over. Just let them have it. Just let them take the money. I can't do this anymore. At the hospital, a doctor named Fiona examined him. Burns on both arms, 3 cracked ribs, bruising all over his torso. She gave him pain medication and said they'd keep him overnight for observation. I sat next to his bed while he slept, watching the security footage over and over on my phone. Every second of it. Tristan's face clear as day. The assault captured in perfect detail. This was evidence. Real, undeniable evidence. Around midnight, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Your daddy's tough. Wonder if you are too. He'd gotten my number somehow. Was taunting me. I stared at that message for a long time. Tristan thought he was in control. Thought he could hurt my family and get away with it. He was testing me, trying to see if I'd break or fight back. I typed a response. Let's meet. Just you and me. 3 dots appeared immediately. He was waiting for my reply. Tomorrow. Warehouse on 5th and Main. Midnight. Come alone. I sent back. I'll be there. He wanted to intimidate me like he'd intimidated my father. Wanted to show me I was powerless. But what he didn't realize was that by agreeing to meet me, he was about to hand me exactly what I needed. I looked at Dad sleeping in that hospital bed, burned and broken, and made a promise. This ended soon, one way or another. The warehouse on 5th and Main was abandoned, surrounded by empty lots and broken streetlights. Perfect place for someone like Tristan to feel powerful. I arrived 30 minutes early to scout the location, old habits from military training. 2 entrances, several windows, plenty of shadows. I noted everything. I wasn't going there to fight. I was going there to collect evidence. Before leaving my car, I strapped a small body camera to my chest under my jacket and tucked an audio recorder in my pocket. Everything tonight would be documented. At exactly midnight, 3 motorcycles pulled up. Tristan got off the first one, flanked by 2 of his guys. Blake, the tank-sized one, and Kyle, the younger one with long hair. Not alone like he'd promised, but I expected that. I stepped out of the shadows near the warehouse entrance. Thought you said come alone. Tristan grinned. I lied. You got a problem with that, soldier boy? Not really. Just wanted to talk. Talk. Your daddy keeps running his mouth about not signing papers. Maybe you can talk some sense into him." He walked closer, hands in his pockets, casual and confident. "Or maybe you need the same lesson he got." I kept my hands visible, non-threatening. "What do you want? Really? Why target my father? Money. That's what this world runs on. Your old man's sitting on a $500,000 policy, and he's not going to live forever anyway. Why not cash it out now? Let someone who knows how to use it take care of business." "By someone you mean you." "Smart boy." Tristan stopped about 10 feet away. "See, here's how it works. We got connections at insurance companies. They tell us who's got big policies and can't defend themselves. Cripples, old people, sick folks. We offer to help them, make their lives easier. They sign over the policy. We take care of everything. Everybody wins. Except they don't win. You're stealing from them." Tristan shrugged. "They were going to die anyway. We're just speeding up the process and making profit. It's business." Blake laughed behind him. "We got 12 others already signed up. Your dad's the only stubborn one. 12 others. Just like I suspected. This was bigger than just my father." "What happened to those 12 people?" I asked. Tristan's smile got wider. "Some of them had accidents. House fires, falls downstairs, medication mix-ups. Tragic stuff. But hey, at least their families got the insurance money. Well, most of it." He was confessing. Right there, admitting to multiple murders. The recorder in my pocket was catching every word. "And if my father doesn't sign, then he has an accident too. And honestly, after the trouble he's caused, it won't be quick." Tristan pulled out a knife, flipped it open casually. "Maybe you too, since you're sticking your nose where it don't belong." Kyle moved to my left, Blake to my right. They were positioning themselves to surround me. "I'm just trying to understand. How does the insurance scam actually work? You get them to sign papers, then what? Why do you care?" "Because if I'm going to convince my dad to sign, I need to know what happens next. Need to tell him it's safe." Tristan studied me for a moment, then laughed. "You're scared. Good. You should be." He relaxed slightly. "Fine. I'll explain it since you asked nice. Our girl at the insurance company processes the paperwork, makes it look legit. The policy gets transferred to a shell company we control. Then when the person dies, we file the claim, money goes into our accounts, and we split it. Insurance company never suspects nothing because all the paperwork looks clean." "Your girl? You mean Natalie?" His eyes narrowed. "You've been doing homework." "Some. Just want to know who I'm dealing with." "Well, now you know. We got lawyers, we got inside people, we got everything covered. You can't touch us. Police can't touch us. We're protected." He stepped closer, knife still in his hand. "So here's what's going to happen. You're going to go back to your crippled daddy and tell him he's got 24 hours. He signs, or you both die. Simple." I nodded slowly. "And if I go to the police?" "We got people inside the department too. They'll know before you finish giving your statement. And then, well, accidents happen to snitches. People inside the department." That explained how they stayed ahead of investigations. "Okay," I said. "I'll talk to him." "Good boy. See, wasn't so hard." Tristan moved fast, suddenly right in front of me. "But first, we gotta make sure you understand who's in charge here." Blake grabbed my arms from behind, pinning them. Kyle punched me in the stomach, hard. Air rushed out of my lungs. Another punch to my ribs. Then my face. I could have fought back. Could have broken free and taken all 3 of them down. But I needed this. Needed them to think I was helpless. Needed them to feel confident and powerful. Most importantly, I needed the assault on camera. They hit me for maybe 2 minutes. Face, body, ribs. Nothing broken, but enough to hurt. Enough to leave bruises. Blake finally let go and I dropped to my knees, spitting blood. "Remember this feeling," Tristan said, standing over me. "This is what happens when you don't cooperate. Next time's worse." They walked back to their motorcycles, laughing and talking like they'd just finished an easy job. Engines roared to life, and they disappeared into the night. I stayed on my knees for another minute, catching my breath. Then I stood up slowly, pulled out my phone, and checked the camera feed. Perfect. Everything recorded. Their faces, their voices, their confessions, the assault. All of it. I also checked my pocket. During the beating, when Blake had me from behind, I'd managed to slip my hand into Tristan's jacket and pull out his phone. It was in my pocket now, password protected but accessible. I limped back to my car and drove straight to a 24-hour tech shop I knew. Guy behind the counter was former military, owed me a favor. I need data pulled from this phone. Everything. Messages, calls, contacts, photos. He looked at my bloody face. You okay, man? We'll be once you clone this phone. It took him 40 minutes. He copied everything onto a hard drive and handed it back. Whatever you're into, be careful. I drove home as the sun started coming up. My face was swollen, ribs aching with every breath. But I had what I needed. Confessions on video. Phone data that would show their communications. Evidence of a massive insurance fraud operation. I just needed to figure out how to use it without getting my father killed in the process. I spent the morning going through Tristan's phone data. Text messages with Natalie dating back 8 months. Photos of documents, policy numbers, names of victims. A spreadsheet tracking payouts and splits. Everything I needed to prove the conspiracy. Then I found the messages about the other victims. Blake texting about a house fire in March. Kyle joking about an old man who fell down his basement stairs in January. Casual conversations about murder like they were talking about the weather. I copied everything onto 3 separate drives and hid them in different locations. Then I called Detective Harper. I need to see you immediately. I have evidence. She met me at a coffee shop an hour later. When she saw my bruised face, her expression hardened. What happened to you? Tristan happened. But I got it all on camera. I opened my laptop and showed her the warehouse footage. Her eyes widened as she watched Tristan confess to the entire operation. This is incredible. This is exactly what we need. There's more. I showed her the clone phone data. Messages between gang members, communications with Natalie, references to other victims. Harper took notes quickly, her excitement building. With this evidence, we can get warrants immediately. We can raid their clubhouse, arrest all of them, shut down the whole operation. How long will that take? I can have warrants by this afternoon. We'll coordinate with SWAT and move tonight. Finally, progress. Real action. There's one problem, I said. Tristan told me they have people inside the police department. Someone feeding them information. Harper's face went serious. Did he say who? No, but they've stayed ahead of investigations before. Someone's tipping them off. She closed her notebook. I'll keep this investigation tight. Only people I trust. We'll move fast before anyone can leak it. I left feeling cautiously hopeful. Maybe this would end tonight. Maybe Dad would be safe. I went to the hospital to check on him. He was being discharged, cleared to go home. The burns were bandaged, ribs wrapped. He looked tired and scared. How are you feeling? Like I want this to be over. It will be. Soon. The police are moving tonight. On the drive home, I told him about the evidence, about Harper's plan. He listened quietly, then said, "What if it doesn't work? What if they get away? They won't. We have everything on them." But even as I said it, doubt crept in. I got Dad settled at home and went back to monitoring the situation. Harper texted me at 4 in the afternoon. Warrants approved. Moving at 8 tonight. At 7:30, I drove near the clubhouse to watch from a distance. Police would be there soon. I wanted to see it happen. Then I saw something that made my blood freeze. A police cruiser pulled up to the clubhouse. A uniformed officer got out and walked inside. He stayed for maybe 5 minutes, then left. Right after he drove away, gang members started pouring out of the building, loading into trucks, motorcycles roaring to life. They were clearing out. Someone had warned them. The raid was compromised. I called Harper immediately. They're leaving. Someone tipped them off. What? How? I just watched a cop walk in and out. Now they're evacuating. She swore under her breath. We're 10 minutes out. Can you see where they're going? They're scattering in different directions. By the time the police arrived, the clubhouse was nearly empty. I watched from my car as SWAT moved in, secured the building, came out shaking their heads. They'd found some documents, some evidence, but most of the gang members were gone. Harper called me an hour later. We got 3 low-level guys who didn't leave fast enough. But Tristan, Blake, Kyle, all the main players are in the wind. And someone cleaned out a lot of their files before they left. Who was the cop who warned them? I'm looking into it. But Dominic, this is bad. They know we're coming for them now. They're going to be more dangerous and desperate. I drove home feeling defeated. We'd been so close. When I walked in, Dad was in the living room watching the news. He looked up at me. Did it work? No. They got away. His face crumbled. So it's not over. Not yet. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered it. Tristan's voice came through, cold and angry. Nice try, soldier boy. Your daddy has 24 hours. He signs, or we come for both of you. And this time we're not playing nice anymore. We know where your sister lives too. The line went dead. My sister, Ivy. I hadn't even thought about her. She lived 3 states away, working as a teacher. I called her immediately. Dom, what's wrong? Are you okay? Has anyone approached you recently? Anyone suspicious? Actually, yeah. This woman befriended me a few weeks ago. Quinn. She's been really nice, helped me move some furniture. What? Quinn. A female associate working for them. They'd been watching Ivy for weeks. Listen to me carefully. Pack a bag right now. I'm booking you a flight. You need to come here immediately. Dominic, you're scaring me. Good. Be scared. These people are dangerous and they're using you to get to me. Don't go home alone. Stay in public places until you're on that plane. After I hung up, I sat down heavily. They'd been planning this for months. Longer than I thought. Every angle covered, every family member watched. This wasn't just about insurance fraud anymore. This was personal. And they'd just made their biggest mistake by threatening my sister. Ivy's flight landed the next morning. I picked her up from the airport and took her straight to a hotel across town. Paid cash, so there'd be no credit card trail. She looked exhausted and confused. Dom, what's going on? You're freaking me out. I told her everything. About Dad, the gang, the insurance scam, the threats. Her face went pale. Quinn seemed so nice. She just showed up at my gym one day, started talking to me. We became friends. Ivy's hands were shaking. She asked so many questions about our family. About you, about Dad. I thought she was just being friendly. She was gathering information. They've been planning this for months. Oh my God. Ivy covered her mouth. She knows where I live, where I work, everything. That's why you're staying here until this is over. Don't contact anyone from back home. Don't post on social media. Just disappear for a while. I left her at the hotel with instructions to keep the door locked and went to check on Dad. He was sitting in his wheelchair staring out the window, barely responding when I talked to him. Dad, did you eat anything today? No answer. Dad. He turned slowly. His eyes were hollow, empty. I can't do this anymore, Dominic. I can't sleep. Every sound I hear, I think they're coming back. I keep feeling those cigarettes burning my skin. I knelt beside him. I know, but we're going to stop them. How? The police couldn't stop them. They have people everywhere. They're always one step ahead. His voice cracked. And now they're threatening Ivy. Your sister could die because of me. This isn't your fault. Yes, it is. I should have just signed the papers. Should have given them what they wanted. Tears rolled down his face. I'm an old man in a wheelchair. What's my life worth compared to yours and Ivy's? Don't talk like that. He grabbed my hand. Please, let me sign. Let's just end this before someone gets killed. I'd never seen my father so broken. This man who raised me to be strong, who taught me to never give up, was begging to surrender. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in Dad's living room with all the lights off, watching the security cameras on my phone. Around 3 in the morning, I saw movement on the front lawn camera. Someone was out there with a can of gasoline, pouring it in a line across the grass. They lit it and flames spelled out words, 72 hours. The fire burned for a few minutes before dying out, leaving scorched grass spelling their message. A new deadline. 3 days. Dad woke up from the smell of smoke. When he rolled into the living room and I told him what happened, he had a full panic attack. Hyperventilating, chest pains, couldn't catch his breath. I had to call an ambulance. At the hospital, they gave him medication for anxiety and monitored his heart. The doctor pulled me aside. Your father's under extreme stress. His body can't take much more of this. Whatever's causing this situation, it needs to be resolved soon. When Dad calmed down, he looked at me with desperate eyes. They said they'd go after Ivy. That's what they told me during the last beating. They said they knew about your sister, that they'd hurt her if I didn't sign. My chest tightened. When did they say that? During the attack. After you saw on the cameras. After they dumped me on the floor. His voice was barely a whisper. Tristan leaned down and said, "We know all about pretty little Ivy. Be a shame if something happened to her." That's when I knew we couldn't fight them. They'd been threatening Ivy for days, and Dad had been too scared to tell me. I stepped into the hallway and called my military buddy Adrian. We'd served 3 tours together, trusted each other with our lives. I need help. My family's being targeted, and I can't protect them alone. Say no more. I'll be there tomorrow. Adrian arrived the next evening with a duffel bag full of surveillance equipment and tactical gear. He was built like a linebacker, calm under pressure, and one of the smartest operators I'd ever worked with. Fill me in. I showed him everything. The evidence, the threats, the timeline. He listened without interrupting, then said, "We need to move your father and sister to a secure location. Somewhere the gang can't find them." I was thinking the same thing. We moved Dad and Ivy to Adrian's family property, a cabin 2 hours outside the city. Remote, defensible, off the grid. Adrian's brother lived nearby and agreed to check on them regularly. Dad protested the whole way. "This won't change anything. They'll find us. Not if we finish this first." Back in the city, I went to Detective Harper with an update. She looked frustrated and tired. "We're still trying to locate Tristan and the main crew. They've gone underground." "What about the leak?" "The cop who warned them." "Internal Affairs is investigating, but these things take time. Time we didn't have." As I left the police station, I noticed someone familiar walking out of an interrogation room. Mason, one of the gang members I'd photographed. But he wasn't in handcuffs. He was walking free, chatting casually with a detective. I followed him outside and watched him get into a car. Then I called Harper. "Why is Mason walking around free?" Silence on the other end. Then, "He's a confidential informant. Has been for 6 months. That's protected information. How did you know?" "I just saw him leaving the station like he owns the place. He's providing information on the gang's operations. It's part of an ongoing investigation." But something felt wrong. Mason was at the clubhouse during the raid warning. Mason knew everything about police operations. Mason was the leak. "Harper, I think your informant is playing both sides. That's a serious accusation. Check his phone records. Check when he contacted gang members versus when he gave you information. I bet you'll find he's been feeding them everything." She was quiet for a long moment. "I'll look into it." I hung up feeling more isolated than ever. The police couldn't be fully trusted. The gang had eyes everywhere, and my family was running out of time. I made a call using the burner phone to a number I knew Tristan monitored. It was the main line to the Iron Wolves clubhouse that police had been watching. I left a voicemail, made sure my voice sounded defeated and tired. "Tristan, it's Dominic. You win. My father will sign the papers. But I need 48 hours to get everything arranged. Meet me at the old safe house on Maple Street tomorrow night at 10. Come alone and we'll finish this." I hung up and looked at Adrian. "He'll bring his whole crew. He won't be able to resist. And we'll be waiting." The safe house was the hotel location where we'd first taken Dad and Ivy, the one Tristan already knew about. It was empty now, but we'd turn it into a trap. Adrian and I spent all day setting it up. Cameras in every corner, all feeding to a laptop hidden in the closet. Audio recorders planted in the walls. Every angle covered. We also called Detective Harper and filled her in on the plan. She didn't like it at first, but when I explained we'd get everything on camera with Tristan making threats and confessing again, She agreed to have units standing by 2 blocks away. The second you have enough evidence recorded, you signal us and we move in. Don't try to be a hero, Dominic. These men are dangerous. I know exactly how dangerous they are. That night, I positioned myself inside the safe house apartment. Adrian was across the street in a parked van, watching the building's entrance through surveillance equipment. Police were staged nearby, waiting for my signal. At 9:30, I saw movement on the exterior camera. 3 motorcycles, 2 cars. Not just Tristan, but his entire remaining crew. Blake had been released on bail somehow, and he was there. Kyle, and 3 others I recognized. Even Quinn, the woman who'd befriended Ivy. 7 of them total. 7 against 1, or so they thought. They entered the building, took the elevator up. I could hear them on the audio feed, laughing and joking. Confident. They thought this was over. The door burst open. Tristan walked in first, knife already in his hand. The others spread out behind him, filling the small apartment. Well, the soldier finally learned his place. Tristan looked around. Where's Daddy? Where's the papers? I stood in the center of the room, hands visible. He's not here. Neither are the papers. Tristan's smile disappeared. You playing games with me? No games. I just wanted to talk to all of you at once. Wanted to understand why you do this. Why you hurt people who can't defend themselves. Blake stepped forward. You wasted our time. Big mistake. Maybe. But I've been recording every word since you walked in. I pointed to the cameras hidden in the smoke detectors, the vents, the picture frames. Say hello to the police. Tristan's face went dark with rage. You think you're smart? You think some cameras scare us? He moved fast, closing the distance between us. We'll destroy the cameras and kill you. Simple. You could try, but the footage is already uploading to the cloud, and police are outside waiting for my signal. Kyle pulled out his phone. He's bluffing. I don't see any cops. 2 blocks away. Detective Harper and her team. They've been listening to everything. For the first time, I saw doubt flash across Tristan's face. But then he smiled again. Doesn't matter. We'll be gone before they get here. And you? You'll be dead. Blake and Kyle moved toward me from different sides. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. Time to stop pretending to be helpless. Blake threw a punch. I sidestepped, grabbed his arm, used his momentum to throw him into the wall. Kyle came from behind. I ducked, swept his legs, dropped him hard on the floor. 2 down in seconds. The other gang members rushed forward. I'd trained for this, spent years learning hand-to-hand combat in situations exactly like this. One grabbed my shoulder. I twisted free and struck his throat, just enough to drop him gasping. Another swung a chain. I caught it, pulled him off balance, kicked his knee. It wasn't like the movies. It was quick, brutal, efficient. Within 90 seconds, 4 gang members were on the ground, injured but alive. Quinn tried to run for the door. Adrian appeared and blocked her exit. That left Tristan. He still had the knife, circling me carefully now. Military training. Should have guessed. You threatened my family. You tortured my father. You killed innocent people. I kept my distance, staying balanced. This ends tonight. You think you've won? Even if police arrest us, we'll be out in days. We have lawyers. We have connections. You can't stop us. Maybe not permanently, but I can stop you right now. He lunged with the knife. I moved inside his reach, trapped his wrist, applied pressure until he dropped it. Then I put him in a choke hold, just enough to control him, not enough to seriously hurt him. It's over, Tristan. Police sirens wailed outside. Footsteps thundered in the hallway. Harper and her team burst through the door, weapons drawn. Everyone on the ground. Now, officers swarmed in, handcuffing gang members one by one. Harper approached me as I released Tristan into police custody. You got it all on camera? Every second. Threats, confessions, the attack, everything. She nodded, almost smiling. Good work. Dangerous, but good work. As they led Tristan away in handcuffs, he turned back to me. You think this ends it? We're not the only ones. Our boss is still out there. The man who started all this. I stepped closer. What boss? His smile was cold. Victor made a mistake 30 years ago. Sent a man to prison. That man got out 6 months ago. This was never about insurance money. It was about revenge. And when he finds out you stopped us, he'll come for you himself. They dragged him away before I could ask more questions. I stood there, my mind racing. 30 years ago. A man in prison. Revenge against my father. What had Dad done? I drove straight to my apartment where Dad and Ivy were waiting. When I walked in, Dad saw the look on my face and his expression changed. What happened? Are you hurt? Police arrested the whole gang. Tristan, Blake, Kyle, all of them. They're done. Ivy jumped up and hugged me. It's over? Really over? Not yet. I sat down across from Dad. Tristan said something before they took him away. He said you made a mistake 30 years ago. That you sent someone to prison. Someone who wanted revenge. Dad's face went pale. He looked down at his hands, silent. Dad, who was he talking about? Long silence. Then finally, his name is Preston. Preston Cross. Who is Preston Cross? Dad's voice was barely a whisper. 30 years ago, I was a truck driver. Long-haul routes, driving through the night. One evening I stopped at a rest area outside the city to sleep for a few hours. Around 2 in the morning, I heard shouting. Looked out my window and saw 2 men fighting in the parking lot. He paused, gathering himself. One of them pulled a gun. Shot the other man 3 times. I watched it happen. The shooter was young, maybe 25. He saw me watching from my truck. We made eye contact. Then he ran. My chest tightened. What did you do? I called the police. Gave them a description of the shooter, described his car, told them everything I saw. The victim died at the scene. Police found the shooter 2 days later. His name was Preston Cross. He was arrested and charged with murder. And you testified? Yes. At the trial. I was the only witness. My testimony put him in prison. Dad looked up at me with tears in his eyes. He got 25 years. He swore in the courtroom that he'd make me pay someday. Said he'd destroy my life the same way I destroyed his. He got out 6 months ago. Dad nodded. I knew his release date was coming. I thought maybe he'd forgotten, that he'd moved on. But then the bikers started showing up. Ivy was standing frozen by the window. So this whole thing, the insurance scam, torturing you, threatening us, it was all revenge. The insurance money was just cover, I said, understanding now. Preston hired the gang to make Dad suffer, to terrorize him slowly, make him feel helpless and scared. The money didn't matter. He wanted Dad to hurt. Dad was crying now. I did the right thing. That man was a murderer. I couldn't just stay silent. You did do the right thing. And now we're going to finish this. I called Harper immediately. I need everything you have on Preston Cross. Released from prison 6 months ago. She put me on hold. Came back 2 minutes later. Preston James Cross. Served 25 years for second-degree murder. Released in March on parole. Current address is listed as a halfway house, but according to his parole officer, he hasn't checked in for 3 months. Warrant out for his arrest for violating parole. What's he been doing since release? Give me a minute. I heard typing. Looks like he started a business. Real estate development company called Cross Properties. Pretty successful from what I can see. Offices downtown. A convicted murderer running a real estate company 3 months after getting out of prison. Something didn't add up. Can you dig deeper into his business? I'll have someone look into it and call you back. I hung up and started my own research. Found Cross Properties online, a professional website showing luxury developments and commercial properties. Photos of Preston at ribbon-cutting ceremonies, shaking hands with city officials. He looked different from what I expected. Well-dressed, clean-cut, successful. But his eyes were cold. Even in the photos, I could see it. Harper called back an hour later. This is interesting. Cross Properties is under investigation by the FBI for possible money laundering. They think he's using real estate to clean money from criminal enterprises. They've been building a case for 2 months, but don't have enough yet to arrest him. So he got out of prison and immediately went back to crime. Looks that way. But he's smarter now. Everything appears legitimate on the surface. Where can I find him? Dominic, don't do anything stupid. Let us handle this. I just want to talk to him. Face to face. She gave me the address of his office after making me promise not to do anything that would compromise the FBI investigation. The next morning, Adrian and I drove downtown to Cross Properties. Modern building, glass and steel, expensive cars in the parking lot. We took the elevator to the 10th floor where his company occupied the entire level. The receptionist looked up. Do you have an appointment? Tell Preston that Victor Reeves's son is here to see him. Her professional smile faltered. She picked up the phone, spoke quietly, then hung up. He'll see you. Last office on the right. We walked down a hallway lined with photos of properties and awards. Preston's office had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. He sat behind a massive desk, wearing an expensive suit, looking every bit the successful businessman. But when he saw me, he smiled, and it was the smile of a predator. Dominic Reeves, I've heard a lot about you. Please sit. I stayed standing. You hired the Iron Wolves to torture my father. Did I? That's a serious accusation. His voice was smooth, practiced. I'm a legitimate businessman now. I don't associate with criminals. You spent 25 years in prison because my father told the truth about what he witnessed. And you wanted revenge. Preston leaned back in his chair. Your father took 25 years of my life. The best years. I went into prison at 25 and came out at 50. Do you know what that does to a person? You murdered someone. You deserved prison. Maybe. But your father didn't have to testify. He could have stayed silent, minded his own business. Instead, he destroyed my life. Preston's calm mask slipped for just a second, showing the rage underneath. So yes, I wanted him to suffer. I wanted him to feel helpless and afraid. I wanted him to lose everything before he died. I pulled out my phone, showing the recording app that had been running since we entered. You just confessed. He laughed. To what? Wanting someone to suffer? That's not illegal. You have no proof I hired anyone. The Iron Wolves can't testify against me because I never directly communicated with them. Everything went through intermediaries. I'm untouchable. Adrian stepped forward. We'll see about that. Preston pressed a button on his desk. 2 security guards appeared at the door. Gentlemen, these men are leaving. Escort them out. As we were pushed toward the elevator, Preston called out. Tell your father I'm not finished. The gang failed, but I have other resources. Victor won't last the year. I took Preston's confession recording straight to Detective Harper and the FBI. Within hours, federal agents were building a case. They pulled financial records, communications, tracked the intermediaries Preston mentioned. The real estate company was a front, laundering money for multiple criminal organizations across 3 states. 2 days later, the FBI raided Cross Properties. Preston was arrested on federal charges including conspiracy to commit assault, witness intimidation, money laundering, and violating parole. His lawyers couldn't help him this time. The evidence was overwhelming. The Iron Wolves members took plea deals. Tristan gave up Preston in exchange for a reduced sentence. Blake and Kyle testified about how Preston recruited them, paid them, gave them detailed information about my father. Even Natalie, the insurance agent, cooperated once she realized how serious the charges were. The trial took 3 months. I sat in that courtroom every single day with Dad and Ivy. We watched as prosecutors presented evidence of the entire conspiracy. 12 victims besides my father. Families destroyed. Lives ruined. 3 people dead from staged accidents. When it was Dad's turn to testify, he rolled his wheelchair to the witness stand. His voice shook at first, but then grew stronger as he told his story. About the torture, the burns, the fear. About watching his children get threatened. About doing the right thing 30 years ago and paying the price for it now. Preston sat at the defense table, cold and emotionless. But when Dad finished testifying and looked directly at him, something changed in Preston's face. For just a moment, I saw regret. Not for what he'd done, but for getting caught. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. At sentencing, the judge looked at Preston with disgust. You served 25 years for taking a life. You learned nothing. The moment you were free, you attempted to destroy another man simply because he told the truth. You are a danger to society and will remain so. 40 years in federal prison. No parole possibility for at least 30. Preston would die behind bars. As they led him away, he looked at Dad one last time. No threats this time. Just defeat. Tristan got 20 years. Blake and Kyle each got 15. The other gang members received sentences ranging from 8 to 12 years. Natalie lost her insurance license and got 5 years for conspiracy and fraud. Mason, the corrupt police informant, was sentenced to 10 years for obstruction of justice and aiding criminal enterprise. It was over. Really over. Dad started therapy to deal with the trauma. The nightmares didn't stop immediately, but they got less frequent. The burns healed into scars, reminders of what he survived. His doctor said the emotional healing would take longer than the physical, but Dad was strong. He'd get through it. Ivy moved to our city permanently. Said she wanted to be closer to family after everything that happened. She got a teaching job at a local school and visited Dad 3 times a week. The insurance company compensated the families of the victims who died. It didn't bring anyone back, but it helped. 7 families got justice because Dad refused to give up, refused to sign those papers even when he was terrified. 6 months after the trial ended, I took Dad to visit Mom's grave. We hadn't been there together since before the gang showed up. Dad brought flowers, yellow roses, her favorite. We sat there in silence for a while. Then Dad said quietly, "Your mother would be proud of you, of how you protected this family. You protected us too, Dad. You could have signed those papers, ended your suffering. But you didn't. You stood up to them. I was so scared, Dominic. There were moments I wanted to give up. But you didn't. That's what matters. You taught me to do the right thing even when it's hard, even when it cost you something. You did that 30 years ago when you testified against Preston, and you did it again when you refused to let him win." Dad reached over and squeezed my hand. "We got through it together." "Yeah, we did." The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the cemetery. Peaceful, quiet, safe. On the drive home, Dad said something that surprised me. "I forgive him." "What?" "Preston. I forgive him. Not because what he did was okay, but because holding on to hate would mean he still has power over me. I'm choosing to let it go. I wasn't sure I could forgive that easily, but I understood what Dad meant. Living well, healing, moving forward, that was the real revenge. Seeing justice done and then choosing peace. Life slowly returned to normal. I went back to my military unit, but took leave regularly to visit family. Adrian stayed in touch, became like a brother to us. Harper stopped by occasionally to check on Dad, became a friend. The story made national news. Other victims of similar insurance scams came forward. New laws were passed to protect vulnerable people from financial exploitation. Something good came from all the pain. One evening, I sat with Dad and Ivy in the living room, the same room where I'd found him beaten and broken months ago. Now it was filled with laughter, normal conversation, life. Dad looked around at both of us. "We're going to be okay. All of us." And he was right. The scars would always be there, physical and emotional. But we'd survived. We'd fought back. We'd won. Sometimes the strongest revenge isn't violence or hatred. It's living well, seeing justice done, protecting the people you love, and choosing to heal. The people who hurt others eventually face consequences. Truth always comes to light. And family, real family, stands together through the darkest times. We learned that the hard way, but we learned it together. What would you do if someone threatened your family like this? Comment below and let me know where you're watching from. I'd love to hear from you. If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe for more intense revenge and betrayal stories. Tell me in the comments what kind of stories you want to hear next. More military justice, family betrayal, or unexpected revenge. I'll bring you exactly the stories you love. Until next time, take care of yourselves and the people you love. See you in the next thriller. Story is finished.